For the last 8 months, there's been a lot of craziness and fear with the coronavirus. The election results haven't come out. I have a lot of coworkers that are frustrating me, and it's really been hard for me to find good things happening in the world. But I finally saw a glimpse of light. I found out I won't have to see my mother-in-law this holiday season. I'm just kidding, I'm still single, which is actually another reason to be sad this holiday season. But honestly, I found myself being very frustrated for the first time in a long time. I felt depressed because I'm looking around and I'm seeing all of this fear, all of this anxiety, and it's hard to even find joy in the world. And it's been this purifying process for me to find out, or to find for myself, what is this true source of happiness that I'm wanting. I want you to imagine that you've now been given everything you've ever wanted. You've gotten your dream job, you have your dream spouse, you have your dream car. If you're me, you're living on like the coast of Florida. I want you to imagine you've won a Super Bowl. Could you get happier than that? You've won 3 Super Bowls now. You'd think you would have achieved everything. It was interesting because I was watching this interview that was done with Tom Brady after he got his 3rd Super Bowl ring. And he says, why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? And obviously in seeing this for him, this wasn't what he wanted, or at least wasn't the fullness of it. There was something more that he was wanting to pursue, but he wasn't finding it. This is an easy trap to fall into because we're not designed to find this like continuous fulfillment or this sustained fulfillment from anything in this world. If what we're truly wanting is just in the world, it's going to leave us unsatisfied. A few years ago, I started pursuing social media fame. And at the beginning of that process, I had these goals that I wanted. So I had this dream, which was to be similar to a Cameron Dallas, where I would have all of this validation and worth, and I'd have this real confidence in who I was, I thought. But then I had this initial realistic goal that was going to be a fence post on the way to my dream. And it was initially to just not look stupid making these videos. Because I was making largely these prank videos, so I'm going around like getting kicked out of Walmarts, doing whatever. And I started to do this, and now I'm starting to get a few thousand views on my videos. And it took a lot of work for me sharing the videos and stuff, but I'm now seemingly getting somewhere. And then I meet this famous Viner, this is Jake Weber. And Jake had been where I wanted to be. He traveled on tour with MagCon in the US with like Jake Paul and Lance Stewart. He had all of this worth that had been given to him, I thought, from that. And so together we start making these videos, we start live streaming, we start like Snapchat stuff, and all at once I'm now getting exponentially closer to where I think I want to be. And like when Jake first put me on his Snapchat, so he told me, he's like, yeah, put yourself on there. And I said, hey ladies, he's single with my Snapchat username, and my Snapchat broke. And I'm not saying this to be cocky at all, because what this literally led to is me being more insecure and more anxious than I'd ever been. And my Snapchat like broke in that process because I was getting hundreds of Snapchats. I couldn't keep up, and it was so temporary for what it could give me. I was becoming actually addicted to being on social media with all of that. And especially in those last few months of me pursuing social media fame, I started to get bigger on this platform YouNow, which is like a live streaming platform where I can interact with people. But I was further away now from where I ever wanted to be. And why was it? Well, these fence posts or these goal posts that I'd set, they moved back exponentially. I was now comparing myself and allowing others to compare me to, I mean, almost the biggest names in the world, it seemed like. And there's this app, there's this website called Social Blade, and it'll give you these analytics on your social media profiles. And now I think it was like 6 millionth in the world ranked, which, if you think about this, like there's a line of people. This is 5,000,009, continue that on. That many people in front of me in line to being the most valued and having the most worth. And it was terrible because like I'd be with Jake on like these live streams, and people are mean, and they'll directly compare us to each other. And I vividly remember a lot of these times where I was being told I had less worth than someone else, and allowing myself to be compared that way. And even the people that seemingly were where I wanted to be, Cameron Dallas to be an example. His documentary Chasing Cameron that's on Netflix. Which I'm not promoting Netflix anymore after that whole cuties thing. But when I watched that, he was one of, or maybe the most anxious and insecure person I ever met in that documentary. And it showed it very well. I mean, he's now under this intense microscope. And this worth that he has, it seemed like he felt like it could just be gone or lost anytime. And those are things I very well related to, but I hadn't even achieved where he wanted to be. And you look at this example of Tom Brady, him and Cameron Dallas, both almost at the top of where you could very want to be in the different areas that they have. And it wasn't because they were pursuing the wrong thing that the world had to offer, but they were looking in the wrong place almost entirely, if that makes sense. When I finally got to this point where everything I tried did not work, and I got out of this relationship and lost everything I seemingly ever had that showed to other people I had worth, I now was left with this deep peace and this actual joy. You know, like surface level, I was not super happy in terms I didn't have like a lot of pleasure in my life. A lot of those things had kind of been taken away. But I now was sitting in a chapel by myself for hours, and I finally found what I wanted. And so what I'd been searching for all of this time was God, even though I was thinking I was wanting something different. What I thought I wanted was to be a social media star, was to be an NBA basketball player, was to be all these different things. But truthfully, what I wanted was to be told, Braden, you have worth. Worth that cannot be taken away, cannot be given to you by anyone except me. And once I found something that couldn't be taken away, they continually drew me in and was sustained fulfillment, like this continuous sense of fulfillment. They just went deeper and deeper. I didn't want to go anywhere else. Now you relate that to today, and how is it that I now get in this process? Well, there's this continually purifying process of where is our joy actually coming from? And we need to be able to look through this lens of love. And that's why it's so important, and you're going to hear me keep saying over and over, to be able to sit down and pray each day and to train our minds to find our worth, to find our joy from the right place. Because there's all these things that want to give you joy. There's these video games, there's these food, there's this food. There's all of these things that tell you they're going to make you happy. And even if it's one of those weight loss commercials, there's things that can be good for you, being in shape, doing all of that. But there's never going to be a point you get to that the world's going to now give you something and you're just going to be happy with it. You're going to be content. You're going to be able to live your life knowing, wow, this is all I've ever wanted. Because if you ever actually get to that point in this world, then you're still not going to be where you want to be. There's going to be this peace that you actually desire. And once you start following that, you're going to be happy. So getting to that place, it's like sitting in that time of prayer. Start to look through that lens of gratitude in such a strange way. And it's Thanksgiving week, obviously. It doesn't seem like there's a lot to be thankful for. But when I got to this place where I was really sad, was depressed, I was frustrated, I went on this walking path at this retreat center by here. And I started to try to just recognize what is the beauty that God has left for us in the world. And I was trying to be very thankful in the way I'm saying this because it didn't seem like I had a lot of other things to be super grateful for. But I was walking on this path and I saw this squirrel and it seemed so unfearful of me, which was interesting. But it's eating this acorn. I don't know why I thought that was so cool, but it really did intrigue me for a solid 30 seconds. But there's all these different things in the world that can direct us towards God or can bring us towards that joy. But we have to be able to start with what the ultimate source of it is. Because looking at a squirrel is never going to make me happy for forever. But it can remind me of the thing that ultimately will make me happy. And so do not forget to make that the highest priority in what you're doing with all of that. And you can look biblically. There's that TV show, The Chosen, that's recently come out. I'm a big fan, honestly, but in the 8th episode of the first season, spoiler alert, but it's in the gospel, so, you probably know this anyway. But there's the woman at the well. And it's interesting because when he's talking to her, she's not understanding how he's talking about this living water. Because what she's thinking about is this water. And in the same way, this joy or this happiness that the world gives. And it's temporary. Like you have to keep going back towards it to be satisfied. But you're never actually satisfied. But then Jesus talks about this living water that he gives. And let that be what draws you in. What gives you this contentment, this fulfillment that you're wanting. As you continue living your life, enduring all of the craziness that will be exteriorly, whether the coronavirus ends or never ends or however that is, whatever ends up happening with the election, whatever happens in your life, remember that the world's never going to give you what you're wanting. It's never going to be the end of what you're wanting. There's always going to be something more, as Tom Brady said. And now that you've found the source, or even if you're looking for the source, but once you find that source in God, and that's where you start to be drawn into, you're not going to be disappointed. That's going to be the joy and the peace that you've been searching for your whole life. Have a great holiday season. If you would like to see more videos coming out from Create the Culture, I encourage you to like the Facebook page or YouTube channel. There will be actually other people now that will start being in the videos or being the main talker person for the videos. So if you'd like to see that, again, connect with us.